Good to go.
All right. Good evening, everyone. We're going to start the ad hoc training committee for the Commission on Police Practices. It's 7:04. We have 4 items on our agenda today. I don't think we're going to get through all of them because we only got through half of our case review training proposal last time. So I hope we can try to get that finished. And then if we do have some extra time, I was thinking we can get to special topics. So the first thing I had on there, Darlene and I had a conversation just before the holiday break. She and I have kind of been triaging, reaching out to various people. And so I proposed modifying kind of our, I'm trying to think, the leadership style, I guess, for our ad hoc committee. And I proposed having her be a co-chair of our committee. And so because I know what we did is we voted on who was going to serve as chair last time, I wanted to open it up to everyone here. I was going to make a motion to add Darlene as co-chair of the ad hoc training committee. I don't think, because we're an ad hoc, I don't think we need to officially have a second, but I want to open it up to any discussion or commentary. And then if so, I'd like to do a quick vote.
If she's good with it, I'm good with it.
It's a good way to put it. Dennis, any thoughts?
I'm with it.
Okay. Darlene and I had a conversation, so unless she decides to throw a loop in there and go, I don't want to do it anymore, I think we might be good. So the motion on the table is to add Darlene as a co-chair of our training committee. So with that, all in favor? Say aye.
I
Perfect. I was gonna say we don't see your video, so we got your verbal ayes.
I
All right, with that, Darlene, congratulations, new co-chair.
Thank you.
The first thing I had on our agenda was any final changes for the onboarding training. Let me pull up my screen real quick. I know we've pretty much already gone over this. I don't believe we have any other revisions, but Chair Tran has actually asked, oh wait, I just saw, give me 1 second. I saw there was a hand raised. Oh, Lupe is on there. 1 second.
I just promoted her.
Okay, I just allowed her to talk as well, so. Lupe, you there?
Can you speak louder? Oh, there we go.
Oh, I think she's made it. Lupe, did you want to say something? Okay, maybe not. Maybe-
Wait, hey, hello?
Yep, there we go.
I don't know what's going on with this computer. I did it the regular way. I got the link from Yasmin, and then it told me to sign into my Zoom account again several times. I don't know what's going on.
I'm
But
sorry, that's actually my mistake. I did not send you a link. I may have
Panelist.
had the wrong
oh,
information.
it was supposed to be a new one. Oh, okay, it's not the other one. Okay, so what do I have to turn the camera on? Okay, no, never mind. Okay.
So Lupe, just to catch you up, so far what we did is we just did a motion to have Darlene act as a co-chair. And so everyone so far has voted for that. I know we've kind of officially voted, but if you'd like to comment on that and vote either against or for, basically Darlene and I have been kind of sharing the work of trying to reach out to various groups and organizations, and I felt it made more sense since she's doing half the work that she'd be recognized as doing half the work. So that was our motion. Do you want to make any comments on that? Okay. You're on mute.
Oh, no, she's the most qualified. She, I go along with it. Yeah, this is for chair for the, for our,
Just for this ad hoc committee.
No, she's
correct.
done a tremendous amount of work. She's qualifies in my opinion.
Perfect. So I guess for that, we'll add you as also a yes. Is that correct? Perfect. All right. Then moving on, the next step we had, let me pull it up on the screen, was the training academy. Up we go.
And the
Uh,
only thing I think the onboarding might need to be cleaned up before we send it off to the full commission. You know how there's notes that, you know, things that are reaching out or whatever, maybe
Sure.
that's not really relevant anymore. I don't know what everybody else's opinion is. We could take all the notes out of the top and just have the body of it. And then I guess my question is, are all the the columns, like, I guess my overall question is, what do you think the full commission will want to see? How much detail should we give them?
Anyone want to chime in? I have a couple ideas I can share, but Yasmin, go ahead.
I can share after commissioners.
I was gonna say, my thought is, I think we could probably strip this down a little bit, and just kind of have kind of the component number and then the topic, and then who we intend to have present it. And then if there's a cost, we could probably put that in there too, but I think at least for bring it to the full commission, I think we could say, here's our idea of the steps we want to have and who would do those presentations, and then open it up to the commission and the public to provide comment and feedback. And then we can finalize that. I think if we start adding a lot of stuff, I think we're going to get a lot more questions that may not be helpful. I think we want to say, here's our goals, and then allow them to chime in, and then we can, you know, take it back and do a little bit of additional work if needed. But that's kind of my thought.
Yeah, so the component and then the objectives and purpose, I think, are helpful too. But then get rid of the NACOL guideline, the comments and questions, the status, like, is it very important for them to know whether we feel like we've completed it for the current commissioners or not? I don't know if that's helpful.
I mean, I don't think so, because I think part of it is the idea is for new ones coming in, and then for any, you know, new successive classes, for lack of a better word, none of those will have been completed. So I think we can essentially start from scratch and say, for anyone who's coming in new, here's the rough layout of what we think makes the most sense. But I agree. I think we do like leave the component, like, so the component number, what the topic is, who would present it, and then I would have the objective and purpose down below. And I would think I would leave it with those 5 things.
And then Yasmin, I'm wondering, like, the training committee isn't going to make sure that the training is actually occurs. So I was thinking, if staff has the details of, you know, what's been completed as what is not, then you can work towards, you know, after the full commission says, yes, this is what we want it to be, then we could ask, or maybe that's a motion for the commission to do, say, yes, we'd like to ask staff to make this happen. Is that what happens next?
I would recommend that. This would definitely be Danelle, like a next step.
All right, if
Working with the cabinet, because they would have to schedule it together.
So I guess if everybody is happy with this, I can pare it down, and it'll probably be not landscape, you know, when we make it so fewer columns, so more will fit on a single page, so it won't go for pages and pages and pages. That'll make it better too. But as soon as everybody is comfortable, I'm happy to do that last step.
Anyone have any thoughts or comments?
I'm sorry, I'm having some issues here with this. Is the city updating again a software thing? Because they're asking me to restart my computer, but I can snooze it, right? I don't
Yeah.
understand. Okay, never mind.
It'll force you to do that eventually, but I think you have an hour and a half.
Yeah, it said I
It'll
have an
force it,
hour.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking on this, I think we're good. I know we've gone over this quite a bit in the past. And it was just a logistics thing on our side, I think, with the holidays. It just didn't get to the cabinet, so we weren't able to discuss it at our last meeting, which is why I asked to table it. But Chair Tran basically said if we have any edits, to have everything to them. I think she said she wanted by the 12th, if I remember correctly. But I think unless anyone here has any objections, I think we're good with those 5 pieces. So Darlene, if you're gonna run with that, great. If you need me to help, let me know. I'm happy to do whatever I can. And I'm not hearing anything else. I see a thumbs up, so I think we're good on that one. Dennis,
Just
go ahead.
Sorry, just to clarify, your once it's finalized, you'll be sending this to the cabinet to include in staff to include in the agenda, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Dennis, I saw you had your hand up for a second.
Yeah, it was a mistake. I'm all for this.
Perfect.
Yeah, I'm good with it also.
Beautiful. All right. The next thing I had up was to finish the case review document. And from my memory, I believe we got all the way down to the SDPD policies and procedures piece. Because we have all the notes up here for like this section here, I believe was our last one that we discussed at our last meeting. So I guess technically it was the Police Officer Bill of Rights, which is known as POBAR. Again, I think that's something that Dwayne has kind of already given us a little bit of a presentation on, but I think he, as our outside legal counsel, I think is the best person to present, the rights and requirements of POBAR and how that applies to our commission and what we do.
Actually, Brandon, when I'm looking at the notes, it looks like we're supposed to start at where it says SDPD officer training regarding First Amendment activities, blah, blah, blah.
Like, go over that? Or did I go further down?
No, down, go down. Oh, the one that ended with racial profiling. I'm sorry.
Oh, there we go.
Right here, yeah.
Okay. I thought we had finished that one. Oh, no, you're right. Sorry, start here. It's the curse of having a small monitor. So I guess on this one, and again, opening it up to everyone to chime in on, who do you guys feel would be best to do a presentation on officer training? Are we open to suggestions? All right, not
Just-
hearing anything. I was gonna say, Yasmin, go ahead.
I just wanted to get some clarity. Is this asking like, what are the San Diego Police Department officers being trained on? Is that what this question is? Okay.
Yes, yeah. So I guess what we could do is for now, until we have, any suggestions otherwise, I think maybe it makes sense to have SDPD training do that training for us. And that, because they're obviously the ones that are training the officers. They could at least show us how they're training their officers in these components. And then if we can always supplement that with other information as we decide we need to after the fact. That I guess would be my thought.
What's
Yeah.
it called? Is it division or?
Yeah, training division. Dwayne, I think I heard you starting to chime in.
Yeah, I mean, the only people that can tell us how they train their people are PD.
Yeah.
I mean, that's whether, and I know people have concerns about us being, like they think we're going to be indoctrinated by the PD or something like that. But that the knowledge comes from them, and we need to know how they do what they do. And, if there's things that we need to look at and recommend as far as change and stuff, that's what we do. But we need to know how they do it. So it has to come from them.
Okay. Yasmin?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Brandon, this is coming after we learn about the best practices around these issues from an outside expert, right?
I think for the majority of them, yes. I think there might be a couple areas that, based on how we have everything scheduled out, and the schedule I don't think is set in stone yet.
Well, the only thing we have that we're learning about best practices before this is on use of force. And that's it. That's the only.
Are we able to add some of these other topics? It looks like procedures for dealing with mentally disturbed individuals. I feel like we can really benefit from experts on that piece. folks under influence, cultural awareness, etc. And then my second piece was going to be a lot of the pushback that we hear from community is besides like having both perspectives, I think also having these trainings public would be very important. So really pushing that these trainings should happen in open meetings instead of at the police training building. I forgot what it's called.
Police
The
Plaza.
academy.
Yeah.
I don't know what everybody else's opinion is, but my personal opinion is none of our training will be closed. Because I haven't seen anything that we've suggested, and maybe there are some things that the PD feels can't be open, but I don't know of anything that needs to be.
Yeah, I would second that. I think the intent is every training that can be open would be open. I think the only issue that we had, I won't say issue, I think the only one that was concerned, well, again, not concerned. The only thing that was closed was we had to break out the commission into two groups, and we had that training up at Police Plaza. That one I think technically was not open to the public, but that was partially because we were in a secure facility. But I think the idea is anything that we can have open to the public, we want that to be open to the public.
So that only thing that you can't do away from that location where they have that training is those simulators, right? And do we need to be trained? Do we need to see that? I don't know.
I mean, I think this is going to be one of those great topics that we have it open to the full commission to get them all to chime in on. I think my thought here is, I think we're trying to like kind of narrow the funnel a little bit to at least present to the full commission things and have them discuss that. I personally think having that training is helpful because when we see cases come in where, maybe an officer used a taser or they used OC spray or something, I think it's important for us to know how that training's done. And if we've gone through, the simulated training or the firearms training, I think it might be helpful for us just to have that little bit of experience to understand how that worked. Now, of course, if a commissioner doesn't want to do that, they don't have to. But I think it's a good opportunity to at least allow commissioners to have that opportunity. But I'd love that to be a topic for the full commission to ponder. And then, of course, get the public feedback too. But yeah, I mean, your point is 100% valid. I totally get it. But I do think that's something that would be helpful for people to see.
Can you explain what that training is, Brendan? Because I think when we went, we ran out of time, right? I don't remember getting to it.
Yeah, I don't know if the other group was able to do it, but it's called FATS. I think Firearms Training System, maybe. But basically the idea is it's a video. It's almost like it's gonna sound kind of cheesy to say it this way. It's almost like a video game where they have a computer that can set up situations and scenarios, and then you are essentially in the officer's shoes and you get to choose, like, given a situation, is it appropriate to use pepper spray or a baton or to use a firearm? And so they can, based on the commands that you were to issue, like if you said, put your hands up, and if the person does it, then obviously you don't use OC spray and things like that. Or it could be the opposite where, you're giving a command and the person isn't responding and maybe they charge you, and it's, do you use your baton or your pepper spray or a taser? I mean, so it's kind of to help you understand what could potentially be active situations out in the field. So basically it's just a whole scenario of situations for people to kind of go through.
That's reminded me of the other one they did while we were there, the kind of PowerPoint that talked about a little bit about like, I don't remember what the title of it was, but it was mostly like putting ourselves in the officer's shoe. Does it kind of touch the same topic?
Similar. I think it's basically, it's hands-on.
Okay.
So,
that makes-
and again, so it basically, like, the last time I did it was, I don't know, 8 years ago. It's a long time ago. And they have a new system since I did it. But the idea was, like, for example, the training I had, you basically put on a belt like an officer would, where you have, essentially your firearm, your taser, your OC spray. and the situation I was in, there was basically someone that was hiding behind a dumpster, and you're trying to give them commands to come out with their hands up. And, you know, whoever's doing the training, they can, based on what you say to them, they can change the scenario. So it's interactive. So in my case, you know, I told them, you know, come out with your hands up, and, you know, they didn't. Instead, they came charging at me, and it was, do you use your firearm? Do you use your baton? Do you use your OC spray? And then after that, they can replay it, and they can kind of say, here's what you did, here's what you could have done. And so the idea is you can, you know, in a safer environment, you can kind of go through the process of what could theoretically happen out in the field. And like I said, I think it's a good thing for commissioners to have the opportunity to see, because again, that's one of the trainings that officers get. And I think it's helpful for us to see that, but I'd love the full commission to be able to chime in on whether or not they feel that's something that they would want us to do.
Yeah, and I just think that might be good for commissioners, but I don't know if we would make that a mandatory thing.
Yep, I'd agree.
And the reason why I say it, because when we make judgments, I mean, if we making, and I know it's a training thing for even, you know, for new officers, so on and so forth, but they're continually being trained. For me as a civilian, my reaction is going to be different. I personally myself could not be a police officer, because I'd probably shoot everybody. Yeah, I mean, I'd probably bring my gun out on every stop, kind of thing. I can't be a police officer. Not that I've ever shot anybody. I think I've only shot a gun once in my life, in college, but I just couldn't be a police officer, because I know what my reactions probably would be, and they would, you know. So, but I wouldn't want to use that as a judgment when I'm reviewing a case and say, okay, what would I do in this situation? Because I wouldn't be trained as a police officer would be trained. And so I would only respond as a person that is just now getting into the academy or whatever. And that would, my response would always be, because I wouldn't have my training wouldn't be continual as a police officer would be. And they would end up becoming an expert.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and again, I think when we did it, I think we had an hour for like several of us to do it. And you know, in my situation, I mean, I probably was overly hesitant to use any of my weapons, and I kept getting killed. So, I mean, I think it's an interesting thing for us to see, but I mean, I don't want to belabor this one topic, but I think it's something that I would like to have the full commission chime in on. I 100% agree with you. If a commissioner doesn't want to do it, I don't think it should be required, but I think it should be something that is an opportunity if people choose to do it.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right,
So-
moving on. Yep.
No, we're not moving on yet, sorry. So getting back to, so we want to know what the SDPD, how they train officers on First Amendment, dealing with the mentally disturbed individuals, people under the influence, cultural awareness, concerns of communities served, and bias. So here's my thought, and you guys can tell me what you think, is maybe what we need to do is break this up into separate things. And so that we have a best practices about dealing with, for example, mentally disturbed individuals and individuals under the influence, and then learn what the PD's training is, and then do a best practice on whatever cultural awareness, whatever like Yasmin, which groups would you highlight in this? Like, how would you break it up?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I would break it down to what you just said, dealing with mentally disturbed individuals. Second one would be the community cultural awareness and history/culture. Third would be concerns of communities, like bias police and racial profiling.
And is the First Amendment thing something that's not really a best practice thing?
I actually don't know if that's
So one
Go ahead.
thing I'll just add to that is SDPD's procedure on that is new. Well, it's 2 years old. when the George Floyd nationwide issues came up, I and our, at the time, the policy committee looked at what San Diego was doing, and we realized there was no formal policy in place here in San Diego that specifically addressed protest-related activities. So the commission at the time made a host of recommendations. I want to say it was like 17 or 19. We had several meetings. Kate Yevendetti, who obviously oftentimes comes to our meetings, she was very involved in some of that. And the department did implement several of them, and they did agree to create a formal policy. I do think that there are some areas that they said at the time that they would not implement because they either needed to do more research or they just felt it wasn't feasible. And I know they said they were going to be making some changes to that policy. And to be honest, I haven't looked recently to see if they've updated it, but I think that policy is kind of it's a work in progress. So I think what we probably should do, I think there's 2 steps here. I think we can take a look at that now. And then we might want to make recommendations to change that again. But I think what might also be better in that regard is once all of, our kind of initial step for the commission is done, my thought is, and I think the cabinet agrees on this one, is we will probably have a policy committee that'll be formed, and then they will be responsible for looking at policies and procedures and making recommendations. And I think that's the forum where we'd want to be looking at specifically the First Amendment related issue. I don't know what the department's doing on training specifically for that. I think they maybe just give them the training, that procedure, and say, here's what it is. But I don't know. I think we'd want to get that from the training division and have them explain that.
Well, and we're going to, there's already a section on here for us to learn what the policies and procedures of the PD are. So I'm gonna delete it here then.
Okay. And then I did see Evie has her hand up, so I will let you talk and ask your question or your comment. Go ahead. Evie, if you're talking, you're muted.
Yeah, okay.
There you go.
Yeah, Evie Cassour speaking. I just got something on my mail today, which I believe I had sent to a number of people, including Yasmin, which is the current report from RIPA, which is the racial profiling group for the state. And very interesting with information, numbers, and the like, but they also have a list of recommendations. And that might be helpful for you.
Sorry, I just put someone on mute because I was getting some feedback there. Yeah, and you said you already had shared that with Yasmin?
I believe I sent it to Yasmin. Yeah, the entire
Okay.
report with other things you can click on to follow up, and in there are our recommendations for how to improve what's going on there. And those might be interesting things for the commission to look at in terms of recommendations to the police department, which you can do.
Okay.
And you
Thank
might,
you.
some of them might already be known, but I thought it was very interesting because it's the most recent report. It's based on 2022 data.
Evie, I actually did not receive your email. Do you mind sending it over one more time, please?
For you? Yeah.
Thank
Okay. I sent it with a group, Yasmin, not separately to you.
Okay, I'll look one more time.
Okay.
And then what I'll do is I will, we can loop back and work and look at that information and try to get incorporated. And there was a question in the chat. It says, why is racial profiling last? It should be a priority at all times. I'll open up to anyone else to chime in on that. I would say this isn't right now, this isn't a priority list. It's not like that's the last in our order, but I'm happy to move that anywhere. I think the idea is just getting the overall training, in this case, what and how SDPD is training their officers. But I mean, I would just say that this isn't a priority list of what is most versus least important.
And actually all these components haven't been ordered yet, but these are just things that, this is the training committee. And so it's what we want we're thinking the commissioners need to learn to do their jobs, be exposed to in order, and this particular grouping is related to case review. So, yeah, we'll be seeing cases that are complaints related to, racial profiling or, biased policing. And so we think that the commissioners need to know about that. And what order this training is delivered is still to be determined.
Hey, Yasmin, go ahead.
I was just gonna name that some of these topics, we actually have had previously included in the special topic, so maybe we're just gonna end up having to move a couple of them into the case review out of the special topics. I just kind of named that. For example, like the racial profiling, when it comes to who's gonna do it, etc.
Perfect, yeah. Is there anything else here? I know we're about halfway through our hour, so I want to try to be able to finish at least this case review chunk. Any other comments on the training piece?
Last comment, sorry, in regards to the First Amendment, it might be helpful to ask Dwayne if he thinks it's important for us to cover that piece, and if he would be willing to do that.
Sure. Yeah, and we can share this obviously once we get to the full commission as well. But when we made the recommendations, we actually, I would say we did look at all the best practices, and we reached out to several different departments across the country to find out what they were doing. And then in some of our community meetings, we narrowed it down to those 19 recommendations of what we felt made the most sense. I mean, obviously not every recommendation from other cities makes sense here in San Diego. But I think what we did was a pretty, and we can actually send out our recommendation list too. It was a pretty extensive email, or not email, a memo letter for recommendations. All right, moving on down to the next one, the overview of internal affairs. The idea here was obviously IA would present that, kind of how it works, how they receive complaints, what the investigative process is once a complaint is resolved, meaning how it's been finished, if there's disciplinary action that comes into play, how that goes. The other thing is we as a commission can review and will be reviewing discipline. And then typically what we've done in the past, and this could very well change, is we would basically say, is the discipline within the matrix and is it appropriate? Typically, things could change because the way the charter was written, we now have the ability to propose discipline. We can't do that now, but right now, once we get the discipline, it's done. So even if we disagree with it, we can't change it. And then evaluating credibility, reaching findings, procedures and practices for misconduct investigations. So the misconduct piece, that's something that's new. The charter does clearly say that the commission has the ability to review internal misconduct of officers. So say, for example, one officer reports another officer for doing something, or if an officer receives a DUI or has a domestic violence issue. Historically, the commission did not have the access and a review of those. We do now, but that's going to be going through a meet and confer with the union and all that. So that one's not something we can do yet, but I think those are all things that we would be discussing in the kind of the process with internal affairs. And with that, I will open it up to comments and thoughts. If any.
I have a question. I know I've heard a lot about the personnel files of the police officers, especially the ones that have been investigated in the past. Do we have the ability, I mean, there's a whole process involved in that, into obtaining a personnel file of a police officer. I understand part of the Bill of Rights or Bill of Officers' Rights. Is
Yep.
that how it's called?
POBAR, yep.
Yeah, is that kind of written in there somewhere, or how to do?
Yeah, that's
that
a,
process?
yeah, so that's a complicated question and an answer we don't have yet. So part
Uh-huh.
of it is
Is that more like a legal question or something?
Yeah, and it's gonna have to go, that's another one of those things that the union is gonna have to chime in on. They're gonna be part of meet and confer. In order for us to make a disciplinary recommendation, we are going to have some kind of access to that officer's personnel file. So one of the things that we have, it's the discipline matrix here, it's progressive. So if it's your first time you have an incident, you obviously get a lower level of discipline. If it's your fifth, you get a much higher level. So one of the things we'd have to know in order to make an appropriate recommendation of discipline is, say, for example, something fairly minor, a body camera violation. If it's their first time, they're supposed to be getting a written warning. If it's, their second, third, fourth, obviously that goes up. So we need to know, is that the first time they've done it, or is this the fifth time they've done that? My guess is that's going to be something that meet and confer is going to be rather long. I don't know how that's going to work out, but that's something that our legal counsel and, probably, the city attorney and the department and the union and all those people, they're going to have to figure out who it is. I doubt they're going to give access to all of us as commissioners, which I don't think we should have, but perhaps the executive director or the deputy executive director or our outside counsel would have access. But that's something that short of a couple of things, there's like Senate bills, Assembly bills that do allow certain cases and discipline to be revealed, but that's kind of beyond what we're doing. So I don't really have an answer for you because we still have to get to that point and do all those negotiations with the city and the department. Anybody else? Okay. The next one, kind of what you were talking about, the police officer Bill of Rights. I jumped the gun a little bit on this. So we started talking about it, and then we went back because I was getting overly excited. So I think on this one, the idea we'd have our outside counsel do that presentation. I know he's already kind of given us a high level version of POBAR. And I'm thinking he could just kind of do that same thing, go into more detail. Anyone have thoughts or comments on that? I don't really think we'd have to go too far outside of our outside counsel. I think in a lot of ways, he's the best person to go over all those issues with POBAR.
Question, once we have an in-house counsel, would everything we're assigning to our outside counsel be moved to our inside counsel?
Yes.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, and that's part of the idea of having on staff person is we'll be able to utilize them a lot more. Obviously, with our outside counsel, he does a great job for us, but there are outside hourly billings that we're a little bit cautious of. Well, the cabinet is cautious of, but if we have in-house legal counsel, it'll be a little bit different. But yeah, they would be doing all of that for us. All right, I will skip on down to the next one. This one's San Diego PD policy and procedures. The first one we were breaking out is use of force, firearms, OC spray, that's pepper spray, tasers, use of canines. My thought on this one is I think obviously force complaints are one of the biggest complaints that we tend to see. So I think it's important for us to understand fully what the department permits. And then also, as Dennis had brought up in the past, once we know that, I think it also allows us to make recommendations for what we perceive as, appropriate changes and revisions to those policies. Before we hop to anything else, any thoughts on this one specific part about use of force?
So for the procedures, who does it make the most sense to be providing that training?
Yeah, I know we've gone back and forth on that a little bit. My initial thought was we'd have, someone on our staff, either outside counsel or, hopefully once we actually have, policy analysts, we could possibly have them doing it, or myself or Doug or anyone who feels comfortable. I do also think it's probably appropriate to have someone from SDPD talk about it, since they've obviously drafted those policies and procedures. And I just feel like as commissioners raise questions, there very well could be questions that we won't have the answers to. But I'm open to discussion and thoughts on that. Or if we have questions, we can always just take note of them and then get those answers from PD officials as needed and then bring it back.
Yeah, I would say it has to be PD.
So there we go. Yep.
Just also flagging, there's a question in
Yeah.
the chat.
Oh, okay. So the question, it's a little bit out of our purview, to be honest. The question is, this is my first exposure to this content. General question. During the hiring process, are prospective officers going through psychological and mental health assessments before hire? Short answer, yes. I don't know all the answers because obviously that's not something that we are part of. But they do go through a background check, which includes a polygraph for criminal backgrounds, and I do believe there is some sort of kind of a mental health check. I couldn't tell you exactly what all that entails because that's not something we ever see.
And just to add to that really quickly, our role as the Commission on Police Practices for now is mostly reviewing cases and complaints against police officers and doing policy recommendations, etc. In the future, our role will expand, but we don't really get involved with the hiring process of SDPD, and we also are independent of the department. So we're our own department within the city of San Diego. We're not under San Diego Police Department, just for clarity.
You're welcome. That was I said you're welcome because she put in there, thank you. So that next chunk we have was the part 2. We were going to talk about de-escalation, duty to intervene, stop detention, pat down, handcuffing, body worn cameras, and personal conduct. There's a lot there, but I think duty to intervene and de-escalation are fairly new to the department. I want to say that's maybe 2.5, 3 years ago, I think is when those came in. And then de-escalation has been kind of woven into a lot of their various policies. But again, I think to Dwayne's comment, I think having staff like CBP staff and SDPD, I think are probably the appropriate spots there to do the training. Anybody else? Yep, Yasmin, go ahead.
I have a question. Are CPP staff being brought in here as outside experts?
No, I was just doing that because Brandon was saying it could be anybody who's knowledgeable, like could be Olga, because she knows the policies and procedures really well. It could be the whoever outside counsel or but I can, what do you think is, I could say chief investigator.
And just for the, sorry to interrupt, for the public, Olga that she just referred to, she is our on-staff chief investigator.
Yeah, I think CPP staff who are being specific works. I'm just wondering because I think this is where we said we're bringing in outside, or did we already cover that?
We aren't bringing anybody outside for the PD procedures. right?
Oh, sorry. I missed that. It's specific to PD procedures. Got it. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, I think we're probably good for these 2 sections. Any final comments or questions? Okay. All right, disciplinary process.
So we already listed that with IA. So my question was, does that need to be separated? If we already talked about it, what else is
Probably
there to
not.
say?
Yeah, and the other thing I was just going to say is I was told like a year ago that SDPD is changing their discipline manual. I don't know if that's done yet, but obviously once that's finished, I would, if they have made changes, I think we should get a new update based on what those changes are. But I think this makes sense. If we're talking about under IA, I don't think it makes sense to bring it up again. Anybody else? Thoughts? I'm not hearing anything, so I would say let's pull it. All right. Excuse me, the overview of our case review process. I think, again, This one, I think it's kind of a placeholder, because until we actually have our operating procedures that are voted on and approved, anything we do here is kind of, it's going to be in flux. So I would probably just leave this as it is. And I think, again, having our outside counsel and Olga, who are our chief investigator, I think they would be perfect to kind of go over that process with us. And our chief investigator has already been sending out emails to the full commission on kind of the case review, next steps, the ones that have the most priority. I would say let's leave this without any changes, but any feedback on that? I see nodding heads, so I think we can move to the next one. The detailed review of a case, write-up, the write-up of the case and case presentation. Again, I think that's something that kind of goes to the step above. And so I would also leave this one here. I think having Doug and myself on there, I think the idea is just because we have a little more experience of writing those cases that we could assist, but I would probably say it makes more sense to have our chief investigator kind of lead that, and then maybe Doug or I can assist as necessary. But I think having our chief investigator as a staffer do it, I think is probably the best option.
Yeah.
Yasmin, go ahead. I see your hand up.
I'm wondering if we should delete the detailed review of a case. Isn't that covered in the top portion? Or does that mean something else?
I don't know. I pulled this stuff from that original outline of what the training academy was supposed to be. So I agree with you. It seems like I
Yeah.
think we could probably delete this one.
Let's pick out the first line. Yeah, just
Yeah,
have like
and then
the write-up and
report-
how you present them.
Exactly. Those I think will actually require a whole session on their own.
I can pull this out. Did I do that? Oh,
No, not
Oh,
the.
there we go.
Oh,
I was gonna say, don't take out that whole chunk. I was gonna say, let's just take out that first line. The detailed case review, we'll still leave in how to write it up and how to present it. So
Oh,
I would-
okay.
Yeah, I was thinking we'll just delete that first line there.
Okay.
yeah, I think combining them will be too long in one day.
Just like that.
Perfect, yep. Okay. All right, we're almost done. Racial profiling and law enforcement within San Diego. We've already had, the current commission has already had a presentation from ACLU on this, but I think this is something that obviously we will always be.
Didn't we
Question
already
about
include
that
this?
later. Go ahead.
Didn't we already include this above?
I think we have how they train for it. And I think the idea here is to supplement how the department trains for racial profiling. I think we can also talk about and get outside sources about racial profiling, like the SDSU report, for example. I think those are important pieces for us to also be able to train the commissioners on.
But Yasmin, we did talk earlier tonight about all the things that get drained on it and breaking that out. So doing best practices and then what SDPD trains on. So we'll reorganize that. But so you're right. We talked about it a little bit.
Any other thoughts for this section here? Okay, I'll move on to the next one. This one I think is the domestic violence, sexual misconduct investigation rules, regulations. That's something I think for us as a commission, I think that's going to be in flux again. We're going to need to work with the department and the city attorney and the union to kind of go over how are we going to review internal misconduct investigations. But COPA, the Chicago Oversight Agency, they have a component on this, which I think it'll be helpful and interesting for us to look at, but I don't think there's a lot we can do on this one until we understand the framework in which we're allowed to review those misconduct cases.
So maybe this goes on special topics. I should move it on special topics for now.
Sure, yeah. Makes sense. I mean, until we actually have a framework that we can actually work within, there's not a lot we can do.
Oh, I have a quick question, about the domestic violence. I know for a fact that there's the Justice Center. I believe they still conduct the domestic violence examinations that I remember. I mean, it's been almost a decade and a half that I haven't done, that I was involved with the domestic violence, or the SART unit, which we did DV exams and rape exams. Would it be, that would probably be optional if people wanted to know about what that unit entails, or that's probably something icing on the cake kind of thing, you know? But I mean, as far as if there's a victim of either, well, wouldn't that include sexual assault too? Not just domestic violence? Or, oh, I see. So sexual misconduct would also include assault, sexual assault.
Yeah, but I think this one here,
Rules and regulations.
yeah, it's a little bit
Okay.
different because typically the commission reviews complaints against officers, and usually it's a
Right,
citizen
right.
complaint against an officer. These are a little bit different. Say, for example, an officer and their spouse have a domestic violence incident that they don't report to us as, the commission, but yet the department investigates it because somehow they get alerted to it. It's a little bit different, but the rules on that are still unclear because we feel the charter is very clear that internal misconduct we get to review. The
Okay.
police department currently does not believe that.
I'm thinking about a detainee that, like,
Oh.
we had a recent incident about that, of a police officer involved in sexual misconduct. And actually, I believe an alleged rape occurred.
Sorry, we can't talk about cases though.
No, I know.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, just as an example, not as
Yeah.
would that case come to us as commissioners eventually? I mean, not that we're reviewing cases right now currently, the most recent ones. We're still trying to do catch up. How does that involve us as far as, well, it is a police officer involved, right, of an allegation. So wouldn't it be to our, what's the word I'm looking for our knowledge to understand about the process of how that is done? Or maybe that's just, I'm sorry, I just can't word it right now. Go ahead. I'll think of the wording in a minute, okay? My brain is kind of fried today.
Yeah, no worries. I think again, it's a little bit of a moving target. I think if it's kind of like in the example you raised, if that individual or someone on their behalf files a complaint, then yes, I would think that would need to come to us.
Right, and wouldn't it be to our benefit to understand what the Justice Center maybe be part of an extracurricular? I mean, it wouldn't be mandatory for the commissioners to go visit the Justice Center. I believe it still exists there on Broadway, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I'd have to check on that, but it's a one roof, they have a legal clinic there. They have examination rooms, of course, where they conduct the DV exams and the sexual assault exams on a victim.
Yeah,
But it's just something that I just thought of right now.
Yeah, maybe what we do is, I think to Darlene's point earlier, maybe
Yeah.
we move this over to our special topics as well.
That
And that
sounds
way-
like a good idea. Yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks.
So
So
here's
this next one, Brandon, the witness reliability one, I think this one is very appropriate to have related to the case review training, because it talks about, how do you evaluate the information that you are being provided regarding whether the complaint needs to be sustained or not, right? Like, what are the standards of proof? What's appropriate and not appropriate or whatever. So I think this particular one is super relevant here.
I fully agree.
I'm sorry, I missed that. I'm sorry. What were you guys talking about? The one that we just finished speaking about, the sexual misconduct? Or
This whole
the,
chunk here,
oh, the witness reliability.
one,
Oh,
yeah.
okay, sorry. Okay.
so I'll open up any comments from anyone else on the committee?
Just really quickly, it looks like this is a big chunk of things. I remember we did the Fourth Amendment separate and the search and seizure separate. Is the idea that all of this would be in one training?
It is one training with the Civilian Office of Police Accountability in Chicago. That's how they do it. But I don't have, all I have is this title. They haven't given me what the content is. So that's all I know.
I would recommend splitting it similar to how our outside counsel did it. And maybe put in outside counsel as some of the experts on those, especially when it comes to the Fourth Amendment and improper search and seizure.
But so you're talking about the thing that Dwayne did? Okay.
Yeah, he gave us a Fourth Amendment presentation back in November or October, and talked a little bit about improper search and seizure.
Right, but this whole like witness reliability and stuff like that, did he really talk about that? I'm trying to remember.
I don't
No.
think so, no.
Yeah, that's why I'm suggesting splitting them up.
Okay.
And there's also, and I'm spacing right now on the name of it, there's like a list of officers that have been found to be unreliable, that we probably should do and it's not a huge presentation, but we probably should do at least a discussion of what that list is and how that list works.
Oops.
Brandon, is that a list created by SDPD or public?
I believe it's like attorneys, like DAs, will submit names to that. To be honest, I don't know the fine details of how that works, which is why I think it'd be great to have a presentation. But basically, it's when officers have been found to have been mistruthful, or I'm trying to think there's other issues, but I believe it's like a DA or an assistant DA or whatever will basically submit that list of people, of officers that are considered to be not reliable.
That makes sense.
It is public, and I don't remember exactly where it is. I don't know if it's on the Department of Justice site or where it is, but it's out there. I think it'd be great for us to get a full training on that, because I don't want to misspeak on any of those things, but it is an important thing, because obviously when cases go to court, that list comes into play.
That's a DA's list.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure it's the DA, but I don't know exactly how that works and all the
Does-
offenses that actually get people added to it.
Is
Does
that
the-
part of number one, or is it a third thing?
No, I think number one, I think it's that witness reliability piece.
I'm wondering if the CPP ever makes or historically has made like their own list of officers that or witnesses that they've seen are untruthful in the cases they've covered. Is that something that you all have done in the past?
I think we'd have to run that by Dwayne, our outside counsel. I know there's an issue. We can't create a red flag list. So for example, officers that we feel are suspect, like for example, there was a use of force that we couldn't prove, we can't put their name down on a list saying, hey, watch for cases from them. That's illegal for us. So I think that might be dangerously close to that. I would need to have our outside counsel chime in.
That makes sense. Thank
Yeah.
you.
All right, anything else on that one from anybody before we try to go on? Okay. I think we're on the last page. Yes, we are. We're a little bit over, so I don't know how quickly we can go through this one. The final one we have here is the CPP summary reports, disciplinary recommendations, and allegation drafting, the role in the disciplinary process. I think this kind of goes a little bit to what we had up above. our policy research and analysis, and how to use the dashboard. Again, I think some of this is going to be a work in progress because some of these things we don't have yet. I think our summary reports, that's something we're trying to kind of work on. Olga, as our chief investigator, has been helping on trying to get those summaries. The idea is we want those summaries of our reports able to be published on our website. So it's kind of like a sanitized, a couple of paragraphs explaining what a case was. Disciplinary recommendations, I'd again have to talk to Dwayne on that, or we'd have to talk to Dwayne on that to see exactly where we can go. I think until we can actually see what an officer's disciplinary, past disciplinary issues are, we can't really make those recommendations. But I think that's something that's coming hopefully in the near future. Our role in the disciplinary process, I think that's again something that's a little bit in flux. I suspect, I would leave this up to our cabinet to decide how they want to move forward, but I would suspect that's something that we probably won't try to move forward until we have a new chief of police, is my guess. And then once we have our policy analyst, I think that last one comes up of how are we going to be looking at policies, researching what other departments do, and then making recommendations on how to change stuff.
So do I move that to special topics too? For now?
Yeah, probably. Because that's really, to be honest, that's outside of case review. So yeah, I probably would just put that in another area, especially because it's all in flux.
And then actually, we do have one more, the process of decision-making, that when you and I were chatting with Sharon Fairley, who is at the University of Chicago, about the concept that cases are not black and white, that it's really important to weigh the evidence and how to compare the officer's narrative against other evidence, how to reach conclusions and figure out what, I think this is like the nuance of this work. I think this is a really important one.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is something that for the rest of the training committee, Sharon, I think would be a great expert to give a presentation on this. And I don't remember what her hourly rate was. Was it $250, I think? 180? I honestly, I have to look at my notes. I don't remember what she told us.
What are the job titles for these people? We're in the wrong business.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
She said she works like you give her a retainer.
Yeah.
I remember she said.
But I think that's one of those where we do have a limited budget when it comes to certain things, but I think that's something that I think would be helpful for all of us. And, maybe we can even just, record that. And then, so we don't have to have her come back every time. We can just have that as a recording to give to new commissioners and, staff as they come on board.
Yeah, if she allows that. And it is $250. I looked it up. She makes $250. She charges $250 an hour.
That was the number that was sticking in my head, but yeah.
But she did say a retainer of 5,000. She also said that.
Yeah, I think if we have if we kind of had like an a la carte menu and said like, if you're going to be doing a training for, 2-3 hours, whatever it is, maybe it's like, it's a set fee of, $750 or $100 or $1,000 or whatever, we might be able to do that. But are there any comments or feedback on that from the rest of the committee? Okay. Not seeing anything else. What I would propose then is much like the onboarding. I would say if you guys are all comfortable with this, let's propose presenting this to the full commission as well. I think we can do the same thing where we pull the component number, the topic, the presentation, and then the objective and the purpose, and then put that in kind of like hopefully a 1 or 2 pager. And then we can present that to the full commission for feedback as well at our next meeting.
So you want this to go at the same time as onboarding?
It might be too much. Usually we only get 5 or 10 minutes to present.
Yeah, plus
So-
I think, because the onboarding one, we had multiple iterations. So what I would be more comfortable with is if I take our comments from today, there's also not objectives
Okay.
and purposes with every single one. I can attempt to draft those and you all can comment on them. However, I drafted everything from onboarding and no one said a peep about my wording. So I don't know what you guys think of this. And I'm gonna say we all did it. I'm not taking the fall if something's bad.
No, we all have your back. But we're
Okay.
gonna point at you going, it was her. She did. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. Yeah, so, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. I mean, I think we're only gonna have at best case, probably 5 or 10 minutes at the full commission meeting. So it probably makes sense to not try to have too much. So let's just go with the onboarding. We can come back, review this at the next meeting, kind of finalize it, bring that one back, and then we can also go over special topics at our next meeting. Do we still want to try to meet every Monday? Does that still
Well,
work for
again,
everybody?
next Monday is a holiday.
Oh, that's right. And I'm gonna be out of town, so yeah.
Mondays are still good.
Okay, so we'll skip next Monday and then we'll pick it up after that.
And just to clarify, in the presentation we're doing to commissioners, we're not including costs. Yeah, right?
Correct. We're gonna leave that out.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, because
I
we
was
don't have.
I was gonna
the
leave that
numbers.
in. Oh, yeah, we don't know for sure. Okay. Money's no object to us.
Wouldn't that be nice? All right, well, I think with that, I think we're good. Thank you, everybody. Darlene, thank you so much for stepping up and being a co-chair with me. Appreciate it.
Sure, happy to.
You're like, I'm doing all the work anyway.
No, I did not say that.
No. All right, guys, well, have a good rest of your night. Sorry, we had
Okay.
a little bit later start for the meeting, but I think we got a lot done today. So thank you again, and have a good night.
Okay, good night.
Thank you.
Good night.